This is going to be so much fun. I've never done a webinar like this before, so this will be interesting. I'm just going to give it a minute or two, at least one more minute for people to join. Wanted to make sure the technology was working and all of the fun things. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the chat box up so I can see that. Okay. And there. All right, so we've got 12 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and start, you guys. How about that? How about we go ahead and start? So first thing I'm going to do is share my screen. I'm going to share my screen right here. And then I want to be able to see my notes. So let's move that over here. There we go. I hope everybody can see my screen. And we've got some people still joining us. Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and get started since it's 12 o'clock. And I know everybody's time is important because we've got some Etsy stuff to do, don't we, for our Etsy shops. It is fourth quarter after all. First of all, I just want to talk to you about how much I love Etsy. I have been buying and selling on Etsy for over 10 years. I'm excited that they asked me to hold this free workshop for you. And if you are new to the Zoom platform, first note that there is a place for you to click on chat and you can ask questions, you can make comments, we can interact together, things like that. So if you have any questions, I want you to comment there and we'll be able to see them later. But that's where you can communicate to me, okay, so that I can see you, and I've got it pulled up for myself. Let's see. First of all, can you hear me okay? If you guys can hear me okay, I want to make sure that the technology is working, that you can see my screen and you can hear me okay. You should see Etsy kind of floating with some floating images on your screen. If you can see that and hear me okay, just type in a Y or something in the chat box. I'm coming to you live from my home office here in the Columbia, South Carolina area. If you also want to comment and tell us where you're from, that would be also interesting to see where everybody is from. So yes, we got Renee can hear and Rose can hear. Awesome, awesome. So this is where all of the magic happens with my business in this office. And I'm pretty familiar with Zoom and doing webinars in my groups, but not necessarily on the public like this for everyone. Awesome. Okay, good. Everybody's saying that they can hear me. And comment and tell me where you're from. I love to see where everybody is from. First of all, I chose Etsy Let's Get Found. So when Etsy asked me to do a free workshop, I'm like trying to decide, which one do I think is most important for my audience and my viewers, and I wholeheartedly believe the discovery is the most important thing, the most important aspect. When you're first starting out for Etsy. Not to say that's the only thing, but it's definitely one of the top two. So being able to get found has been, to me, is very important, and that's why I thought I would speak on that today. I just wanted to discuss the techniques that you can implement to help your own shop get found, and we're going to discuss today first an introduction if you don't know who I am. We're also going to talk about keywords and photography, as well as customer experience. And then I'll have a little bit of a homework for you after you've learned some of the things that I wanted, some of the strategies I want to talk to you today. Let's see, so the next slide, moving on. This is me. Hello, this is me. I'm Julie Samaco, owner and founder of Southern Charm Wreaths. You can find me on Etsy at Southern Charm Wreaths. I worked first off 10 years in the financial sector, and after being a business executive for that long, I decided to come home and be home with the kids. So I started that process in the journey in my life as being a stay-at-home mom. And one of my goals was to make my home warm and inviting, my house a home. That was important to me. And so I started creating decorative door wreaths on my door, just to be inviting, and it was fun to decorate for all the holidays and things like that. I then in 2009 took my passion of wreath making and transformed my hobby into a full-time crafty business. I'm self-taught with a natural gift for color and design as well as persistence. I do not give up, you guys. I work it until I can figure out a way that it starts working. With just a few short years, I built my thriving business into a multi-six-figure business, and now I feel completely blessed. I'm able to share all of my knowledge that I've learned with so many people. Because sometimes, when you're self-taught, it takes a long time, doesn't it, to get from point A to point B. But if you have somebody that can coach you or mentor you or share with you, like I'm sharing with you today, things that they have learned in order to speed up the process for you, I feel like that is a great way for me to give back to the community. As well as, with the success of my business, being able to donate to charities that I've never been able to donate to before, and just really impact my community and the world as a whole. So don't think that your business is, I want you to think a lot bigger in your business. Yes, it's might be small now, but the impact and the potential of it to grow is huge. And to think it all started with my Etsy shop. So my purpose is to change lives by educating, inspiring, and motivating creatives to make a difference in the world using their God-given talents. And let's see, what else do you want to know about me? Oh, if you've been following me for a skinny minute, you know that I am not a perfectionist. This webinar will not be polished, and I've not practiced it to the nth degree. This is something that I put together with Etsy's help, obviously, and I felt compelled to be very genuine with you. I like to see your questions, so feel free to ask them. There is going to be a point for questions at the end, but go ahead and ask any questions that you might have as we get started. First of all, who has an Etsy shop? So if you have an Etsy shop, comment and tell me what your shop name is, and when did you open it? How long have you been selling on Etsy or trying to sell on Etsy? So if you don't have an Etsy shop, maybe you're just tuning in to get some ideas and trying to build up that courage, right, to open up your shop. Tell me, what is holding you back? So if you don't have your Etsy shop open and you're just still investigating and trying to research, comment and tell me what's holding you back from starting. It's important to keep in mind that with every aspect of your Etsy shop, whether it's your about section, your shop announcement, or your product photos, you must look at your shop through a buyer's eye, okay? Keeping in mind that the buyer's point of view and search strategies we'll touch on today in the webinar will help set your shop up for best practices and overall success. So, question I want to ask you is, what influences your online purchase behavior? Think of it for just a minute. What is it that gets you to buy when you see something online? Is it the prices? Is it the shipping cost? What about images? Maybe it's product reviews. Are you looking at something online and, just looking at something online, why do you buy? Because if we stop to think about that for our own selves, it helps us to put ourselves in the buyer's shoes and to figure out what they might be also looking at. What about emotions? So most of us don't buy what we need. We buy what we want, don't we? It also could be recommendations from others. Sometimes people make recommendations and you don't know why, but you're buying. For example, you guys, I saw somewhere on Instagram, somebody posted the Hallmark Channel Monopoly game. Now, when I saw that, I was like, I got to buy this. Did I need it? Nope. I didn't even know I wanted it until somebody else recommended it for me. So keeping all of these things in mind will help you to build your Etsy shop and help you to figure out what what you should, how you should word things, what photos to use, and things like that. So we've got Mora's Wreaths Works is on here. We've got Wreaths by Rosalie, and we've got Louisiana and Boston and Pittsburgh in the house. You guys, welcome. Welcome. So in this, we're going to be spending some time perfecting. We're going to be talking about discovery, basically just getting found on Etsy. You know, we spend a lot of time perfecting our craft, learning how to make it, right? We research the best colors, the best place to buy supplies. We also we need, you know, take all this time learning how to actually make the craft, right? We need to remember that in order to sell what we're making, we also have to spend enough time researching that aspect of it, researching what our buyers like and what they are prone to liking. We have to, you know, keep up on all of the trends and things like that. But it's important to take some time like you are today in order to help build up your Etsy shop strategies for best success. All right, moving on. Let's talk about first Etsy search and Google search. Each one of these has an opportunity for organic visibility. Organic visibility just means getting found without paying for ads. Yes, ads can be effective in your Etsy shop for a successful shop, but first I think it's important to hone in on being able to get found organically first, because if you can't get found organically first, then putting any ads behind your listings are not going to be the best use of your dollars. Okay, so I find that we first need to get started on learning how to get found on Etsy. And the other thing is important is getting found on Google search. All right, so Google search and Etsy search are what we're going to be focusing on today. So when it comes to your visibility or your SEO, which means search engine optimization, another fancy term for just getting found online, this is what determines where you appear in search results. SEO is the process of increasing the quality and quantity of traffic to your products by increasing the visibility to shoppers. So in this training, we're going to look at 3 key areas for SEO. We're going to talk about keywords, we're going to talk about product photography, and we want to talk about customer experience. These are the 3 areas that can always be improved on and should always be improved on throughout your business journey. So being in the floral industry, it's always important for me to keep up on color trends, you know, and what I've learned is that what's popular, say this year, might not be popular, say next year or years from now. And the same thing is true when it comes to SEO and learning SEO and figuring out SEO for that specific product that we have today that we're listing. You always need to look at that and check it each year with your products, because you know what worked last holiday season for a product might not be what worked this holiday season. So the same is true for the buyers that are attracted to our photos visually. You know, what photos worked good last year might not necessarily be the same this year. All right, I'm just making sure I've covered everything under this slide. So let's first begin with our Etsy search, okay? A quick note, the way Etsy determines visibility is always changing, but the best practices that I'm going to go through with you today can also be found in their ultimate guide to Etsy search. They always keep that up to date. So if you're ever, you know, confused or don't know where to start, go and just Google ultimate guide to Etsy search and it will have pretty much everything you need to know there. They really tell you what they are looking for and what they hope to see in our Etsy shops. So we'll start with a quick review and then we'll go over some pro tips. First, optimizing Etsy search. Let's start with titles and tags. First and foremost, the keywords that you add to your listings are what makes your listings eligible for appearing in a shopper's query. So remember, Etsy consists of a big computer, right? A big computer, kind of like a brain, not like my brain, unfortunately. My brain is not that smart. But Etsy consists of this big computer which determines what to show buyers based off of a computerized formula. And this formula is called an algorithm. Once the search algorithm finds all of the items that match the search, the algorithm then uses keywords to determine which order to place the results it finds. So always think about what a buyer would type in to the search bar when coming up with keywords and phrases for your titles and tags. So for example, oh, I forgot pro tips. Some of the pro tips that Etsy suggests for your titles: use the exact words and phrases you think buyers will type into the search box when shopping for an item like yours. So rather than calling it what you've named it or how you describe it, put yourself again in the buyer's shoes and go with what's most intuitive for them. So for example, when I was getting started, this is exactly what I would do. I would call it Holiday Elegance Wreath, when really I should have been calling it Blue Christmas Wreath with Poinsettias. Do you see the difference there? And instead of calling it Holly Jolly Elf or Holly Jolly Jeff the Elf Wreath, which is kind of cute, I should instead called it Elf Christmas Wreath for Front Door. So you don't want to call it any of those cutesy names that we tend to want to like label our artistic designs and with. Instead, put yourself in the buyer's shoes using just the keywords that a buyer would use, because a buyer is not in your mind as you were creating it, right? They're instead online, and you're trying to vie for thousands of other products. So you want to be as specific and clear as possible with your titles. To help find popular keywords shoppers are already searching for, you can start by typing your ideas into the Etsy search box. If Etsy recommends it as a suggestion, this means that the term is already searched on and should be considered. So you can see here at the example that I just typed in red and green WHIM. And immediately what is shown to me is red and green whimsical Christmas wreath. So that would be a suggestion for me to use as part of my title and some of my keywords for my listing. So use the Etsy search box to help you get started. Etsy says shorter titles tend to perform better. While it's important to get relevant words and phrases in, try to keep things as easy to read as possible. Etsy suggests using commas to separate 2 to 3 most relevant keyword phrases, and then put the rest of your keyword phrases into the tags. Example, a title I would use for a wreath might be Snowman Christmas Wreath for Front Door, comma, winter holiday wreath for outdoors. So you notice in that example, the only 2 words that I used that were the same was the word wreath. I used snowman Christmas wreath. I also used for front door. I used winter holiday wreath, and I used wreath for outdoors. So just by keeping it short and simple, I was able to pretty much get in all the keywords just separated by 1 comma. Place your most influential phrases at the front of your title. The first 3 words in an item's title tends to have the most weight. So not necessarily in terms of ranking, but what a shopper reads first. You might want the title, you want the title to easily connect with your buyer, and you want them to be able to see it and relate to it. So making sure that you keep the first 3 or so words relevant to your keywords. I see a lot of times people will use, XXL or extra large or something like that in the first word of their title. But when you're looking at your on the Etsy app, and just take a look at your own shop for your Etsy app and look at your titles on your listings. When you're looking on your Etsy app, Etsy just truncates that and only shows you the first two words, I think, even if that, of the title, right? So if you put a lot of stuff at the beginning of the title that doesn't necessarily have a keyword in it, it's going to be harder for the buyer to relate to that listing. So here in the example, you can see that I started with the search term red and green WHIM, and I came up with the terminology red and green whimsical Christmas wreath. So you can see how I would put it in my, I'm going to go ahead and get my pointer. You can see how I would put it in my title here, red and green whimsical Christmas wreaths for front door. Comma, Merry Christmas wreaths for outdoors. So you can see how I use multiple different phrases called long tail keywords, and I separate those out by commas. Don't worry, welcome, Teresa. Don't worry about being late. Okay, so let's talk about tags. So we talked about the titles, and we're going to talk about tags. Tags allow you to enter in the finer details about your product. So you want to be very specific. You want to use all 13 tags available to you. And you want to think about words and phrases to accurately relate to your item's style. So be very specific in colors, textures, size, where it should, where they could, for me, for wreaths, I'm thinking outdoors. Where can they put it? It might be an over the mirror wreath or something like that. So be very specific in your tags, what you've put. So you can see I've put holiday wreath, outdoor wreath, white flocked, Christmas decor. Try to be as specific as possible. And this is another place that you don't want to just randomly make things up. You want to make sure that this is something that buyers are looking for. When possible, use variations in your titles and tags to increase the likelihood of getting found through different searches. The next thing I want to talk to you about are the attributes and categories. You have access to these during your listing process. This used to be one of my places that I would just bypass and not really consider until I realized the importance of listing it in my listing. These are where Etsy gets to know your listing a little bit better. Etsy uses the information you provide in your attributes to help determine what filtered results your item will appear in. The terms you select can also act as extra tags on your listings. You want to add as many relevant attributes as possible and categorize your listings as deeply as possible. So for me, I sell wreaths. I need to make sure that I categorize down to wreaths on the category, and I want to make sure that I'm, telling it what color it is, primary and secondary, what style it is, and the sizes, and if there are any holidays or occasions associated. Attributes are separate from item tags, but they work together with them. They provide shoppers relevant information about your item. You want to select as many accurate attributes as each item has available. Again, this will maximize your item's exposure in search results. The product features like color, size, and even holiday will help in getting found and will appear in additional relevant specific searches on Etsy. So remember to use attributes that describe the item, not how the buyer might use an item. So for example, my wreaths do make great gifts and would be perfect for a birthday gift. However, I would not select birthday as an attribute because it's not related to a birthday. And if I were selling a happy birthday wreath, with maybe baby's first wreath #1 or something, that would be considered an attribute for birthday. But just because some people give my items for gifts for birthdays does not mean I want to set an attribute for birthday. So, okay, also with helping on finding relevant keywords for your items, you want to use your stats. Now, this is something that I didn't know either when I was first getting started, and I've started to depend on this more and more as the years go on. Over time, you can use your stats to see which listings buyers are engaging with the most. So here I can see my shop stats show which of my most popular wreaths have interest and have sold. So I'll know which styles to make. So I'm giving you a screenshot sort of what just a quick view of some stats in my Etsy shop. I can see here that we've got the red and green Christmas wreath. We sold that one and how many views it took, you know, how many views it got. Also the black and white one, I've sold a couple of those. Knowing that I'm looking at my wreath sales and the top wreath sales are these whimsical wreaths, I can determine that, wow, people are really liking this, so I need to make more whimsical wreaths. I could also incorporate more black and white and red and white. So I'm just looking at the stats to determine what styles people are already purchasing on and also what they're viewing on. When you have a listing with a lot of views and sales, check the listing stats to see which keywords shoppers are using to find that item. How can you incorporate more of those keywords in your listings or in the product description? So this is not under the actual listing, right? My product, this is more on the, oh no, it is on the product listing. So I can pull, this works both ways. You can do it on the shop level, as the shop as a whole, your stats, but you could also drill down to individual product and pull up the stats for that individual product. So here I can see Christmas wreaths for front door. I'm getting views for this one product. A lot of views for that one product came for these keywords. Also Christmas wreath and front door Christmas wreath. I wouldn't worry about, you see how people are searching on Christmas wreath and Christmas wreaths? You don't need to be plural, okay? So what Etsy will do is it'll take that root word of wreath and it will include it in the search results. So don't feel like you need to take space out of your tags to make up something plural or even your keywords. Etsy already does that for you, so that will help save you a step and also space. Okay, so there's that. Also, listing quality. So listing quality is the name Etsy gives to the how well an item performs in a specific search metric. I know that's a long metric title, but this is what they gave me. So any positive engagement that your items get helps you in search results. Okay, so think about any clicks, favorites, adds to cart, or even purchases. These all positively contribute to the search metrics. There really is more to visibility than just keywords, which is another reason to think about your listings from a buyer's perspective, which leads me to my next point. You guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and comment and I'll come back in and answer them at the end. Which leads me to my next point, photo photography or product photography. Buyer engagement with your listings can positively influence their performance in search. So it's important to think about what you can do to grab a buyer's attention and encourage them to make that purchase. Product photography and the customer experience your shop provides are two major focus areas. Product photography, your first listing on the photo helps you to grab a buyer's attention, right? So when you're, think about, again, as a buyer and they're going in and they're putting in search, let's say they're putting in Christmas Santa wreath for front door. That first photo is the one that's going to enable that click, okay? So you want to make sure that that photo is bright and clickable. It plays a huge role in conversion rate and how often that click turns into sales. Okay, so for example, if your first photo is what drives the person to your shop, right? That shopper comes to your shop. The other photos are what's going to help your buyer determine if they want to make the purchase. So the first photo is important to get people to your product. The rest of the photos are there to encourage the buyer to buy. You want to use engaging listing photos to encourage clicks, grab attention with your first image, like I said. The rest of your images are there to encourage the purchase. Oh, I'm ahead of the game. Think about the types of images that you need when shopping online. So what imagery makes you want to buy? When a shopper clicks on your listing, it will positively impact your search ranking, right? So again, when a shopper clicks on your listing, it positively impacts your search ranking. So make that first photo clickable. Other things, Etsy recommends seven different style shots to influence the purchase. So we've talked a lot about that first purchase. Now I want to talk to you more about the other photos to include in your listing to help convince that buyer to make the sale. Even though technically I'm not supposed to be talking on the photos, I thought it was very important to include in this demonstration for you guys under discovery because they work so close hand in hand. Once we get discovered, I want you to be educated enough on some of the other things that you could do and best practices to do in order to influence that buy. The first thing, one of the 7 photo that Etsy recommends is a studio shot. So this is your first photo. Etsy wants it to be clear and bright. You should have more than one studio shot in the 10 photo slots that they give you, but the very first one needs to be clear, and I'm going to tell you why later. It needs to be on a white background, but you want it to be very very clear. So remember, this is what gets the buyer to click into your shop. The other, number 2, the other photos that could be in your of your 10 listings or your 10 photo slots is a lifestyle shot. So a lifestyle shot is a photo that shows your product looking good in its natural environment. So you can see here that if I'm selling this flower arrangement, which is one of the things that I made to sell on my Etsy shop, I want to show it how it looks, maybe styled with candles, and that people can just sort of just start to envision it in their own homes. If you're selling door wreaths, you want to envision it on a door wreath, on an outside door. A lot of times I see people make mistakes that they take photos of their wreaths and they put them on a closet door, an interior door. And keep in mind that your interior doors are much smaller than your exterior doors. So you want to make sure that you take photos of an exterior door. Even if you like to put your photos on really pretty backgrounds, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're using them as part of your 10 photos, but you want to also have one that shows it on an outside exterior door so people can sort of envision it in their own life. You can have multiple life shot styles too in your photos. The other one, number 3, is a scale shot. So this photo style communicates the size or the dimension. So when a buyer comes to my Etsy shop and they see the wreath actually on a door, they can see how big is that. Let's be honest, a lot of times buyers don't take the time to read the sizes, but they will definitely go through the photos, most definitely. So you want to make sure that one of your photos shows it demonstrated on an exterior door, or if you're selling jewelry, you want to make sure that you are showing like your bracelets on a wrist so that they can see how chunky the bracelet is, how snug or fitting it might be. If you are selling, let's say, candles, you might want to put it in relation to maybe a book or a vase or something like that, so people just can get a sense, your shoppers can get a sense of just how big your product is. The other shot style that you want to include in your Etsy shop are the detailed shots. So these are photos of you taking pictures of your product close up. So you want to make sure that for me as a wreath maker and floral designer, I want to make sure that that texture really shows up on my photos. So you can see here in this image, the texture of the ribbon is just almost like a sandy feeling. and that's exactly how it feels. And I've captured it here in this photo. Also, you can look at the flocking and the snow-covered greenery. You can see that my stem, the other pics that I use, are a soft texture of the oh, I don't even know what that is, like a fabric. So they can see the fabric. You want to be able to do multiple detailed shots so that they can see various angles of your products, as well as all of the detail that's so important to ensure that they buy. This just helps make the sale. Another photo shot that Etsy recommends are group shots. I feel like group shots are really important if you are, let's say you're selling supplies, you might be selling multiple rolls of ribbon, or you might be selling multiple, beads, or I'm trying to think of all of the people that follow me, what do they make? You could show, if you're doing candles and you're pouring your items, you might want to line all of your jars up as you pour your candles. So showing a group shot is important. For me as a wreath maker, it might be hard when we're to do a group shot photo, but I think it's very important to consider when we have, let's say we have some of our designs that could be used together. So if I have a wreath, a swag, and a table arrangement listed on my Etsy shop separately, each one of those listings would have this photo to show the buyer how they work well together. So if you sell a garland and then you sell a wreath, try taking photos of the garland and the wreath together displayed so that your buyers start seeing a pattern, and you're actually helping them to make a decision on how to coordinate all of their room, right? Their whole room, or maybe their whole door. So I think group shot photos are important. The other one is a photo that shows your packaging. Here I just did a quick shot. I probably could have done a little bit better. But if you take the time to put your items in bags, I've gotten so many beautiful things from Etsy where the buyer has taken the time to write a hand note card, tie something on with twine. If you have anything in your shipping that you feel is important to display to the buyer, make sure to include that, because what happens is a buyer comes to your Etsy shop and they see these photos. They're going to see how it's going to look when it arrives on their front door, and it just gets them excited in order to make that purchase. The other photo that's important to show is a process shot. So a process shot is you making some part of your items. It could be, if you're hand painting something, it might be you holding a brush hand painting your sign, or actually beading your jewelry together, or if it's you using potpourri or anything like that in your candles, you might want to show how you process that. Just a photo of you making your product really ensures to the buyers, it just reinforces that buyer why they're shopping on Etsy. They're shopping on Etsy because they're getting handmade. So this just reinforces that with them, and helps to make that sale. So moving on to customer and market experience, your review score, whether or not you offer free shipping, processing times, your about section, your shop policies, can all help make a shopper feel more confident and excited about making a purchase from your shop. Having these areas completed in your Etsy shop can give your shop a slight boost in Etsy search. So you want to make sure that all of those are completely filled out. All right, Daniel, I'll answer your question at the end, but great question. All right, so the other thing is, okay, back to customer market experience. Other contributors, okay? So in order to get great reviews, here are some tips. Quickly respond to your customers' questions. Do your best to accommodate a buyer's needs. So if they're looking for something personalized, maybe they're looking for quick processing times, they're probably looking for an estimated delivery date. Setting that up in your Etsy shop is important. Offering incentives to encourage repeat buyers. You can do all of that through your Etsy shop, through the marketing side of it. When you set up your campaigns, it just sends them some note that says, thank you for your purchase. for your next purchase, why don't you save 20%? Here's your coupon code. You know, so you could do all of that just to encourage a greater experience for your buyers. Complete your about section. Your about section is your opportunity to tell the story behind your business. You can use photos and video. Adding an about section to your shop will not only help buyers feel more excited about making a purchase, but it will also improve your visibility in search. Your about sections are considered contributors to a positive customer experience, which is weighted in shop and listing visibility. A lot of times people ask me why they can't get their Etsy shops working. Most of the time, there's other things too, but most of the time they haven't taken that time to just complete that about section, and it really only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to get completed. You also need to have your shop policies completed. They give you a slight boost in search, but more importantly, they help buyers understand exactly what to expect when making a purchase from your shop. So offering this information upfront can help avoid any possible confusion should an issue arise. It also helps to it's also a safety feature for yourself as well as the buyer. So for example, I've had times when buyers would want to, you know, return something, or maybe something broke in the when I shipped it. The buyer can refer back to my shop policies and see how I stand behind my products and if I offer returns, you know, and that type of thing. It also is a great place for you to direct the buyer when they're trying to, maybe they're trying to ask you something that's not necessarily what you would do. You could say, I've already got these in my policies. If you could please take a look at that. You could see that I do not offer that service, or do not, this is not something I offer. So getting that set up is very important. Moving on to Google search. Okay, you guys, this is hugely important. And I think a lot of people trying to teach how to sell on Etsy, they forget this. They forget about Google. I have made a lot of sales just in Google searches. And let me tell you some of the ways that have helped me. First of all, getting found on Google is similar to getting found on Etsy, with just a few other factors to keep in mind. Yes, titles, tags, attributes, categories, they're all relevant for Google, just like they are on Etsy. However, I want you to take into consideration the item description. The item description is not super relevant getting ranked on Etsy search, but it's definitely scanned by Google, and this can impact your ranking there. So use the same strong keyword phrases and maybe a few more in the first 150 characters of your description. You want to make sure that you use original content in that first 150 characters of your description. Also, your shop sections are very important for Google search. I've seen sellers get really cute and clever here, which is fun from a brand perspective, but this area of your shop can actually help with SEO. So it's best to take advantage of this spot. Just to be clear, it's not that these are also tags on your listings, but Google is able to recognize that this is a section of your site and your listings live under this section, okay? So for example, I see a lot of people saying, for the front door, right? Instead, they really should be saying Christmas wreaths, Easter wreaths, spring wreaths, okay? So you want to make sure that your shop sections are clear sections, and you want to remember that a buyer might be coming to you from Google, and that's how Google will find your items listed under those shop sections. Also, the other thing that will affect your Google search are links, or known as backlinks. Links from other websites are highly influential in Google's ranking algorithm. I encourage my students all the time to use a blog, to incorporate a blog into their Etsy shop, because a blog is another website that is driving traffic to your Etsy shop, right? Also, linking from Pinterest is another way to encourage traffic to your Etsy shop and increases that Google search factor. But you could also do other things like reaching out to other bloggers. I've had students reach out to other bloggers to be featured on their blog. So when a blogger features your items on their shop, all of their readers go to read their blog post, but then they click on your item in your Etsy shop, and that's considered a backlink to your Etsy shop. So even when you reach out to, say, some of the top influential bloggers on Instagram, or some bloggers that you've been motivated, inspired by over the years, you could reach out to them to see if they would feature a product for you. We've had people contact us directly to say that they want to feature our products. But before you agree to any of that, you need to do your research. You need to make sure that the people who are reaching out to you have a following on social media. They have a blog that looks professional and readable and clear. I've turned so many people down just because when I go over to their blog, I'm like, you've got 2 comments on that blog post? I don't think so. If somebody reached out to me and it was a blogger and I went over to their blog and it was professional and clearly defined, and I click on some of their blog posts and they've got 50 comments or 100 comments, I go back over to their social media and they've got an engaging social media platform, that's somebody I would definitely consider partnering with, because they know how to be professional, and they also know how to format and, more importantly, drive the traffic back to your shop. So be very careful when you do partner with other people. Again, photos are another thing that play into Google search. They're an important role. You need to make sure that that first photo and that first slot of your Etsy listing is clear on a white background, as clear as possible. I know sometimes, depending on what you sell, it can't necessarily be only white, so you just need it to be as clear as possible. No other items in the shot. This is not where, the first shot is not where you put your candlesticks if you're selling an arrangement, right? You only want the arrangement, and you want to make sure that you have no watermarks, okay? So nothing on that photo except just the item you're trying to sell. So don't use words and phrases that are irrelevant to your item. This seems pretty obvious, but some sellers try to be very vague and general, thinking that they're going to be in more searches, and that's not what's going to help make the sale. What's going to help make the sale is to be very specific on your keywords, okay? Very specific. Remember to use strong keywords in your titles and tags. Being specific to help describe what's unique about your product can help you reach buyers who are looking for what you're offering. For your title, okay, so for your title regarding Google, Etsy gives you 140 characters, but Etsy says you don't need to use them all, especially when it comes to Google. They tend to prefer a more concise, readable title. So with Google and Etsy search in mind, it's about finding a balance. So I typically suggest coming up with 2 to 3 super relevant phrases, okay? 2 to 3 phrases separated by comma. Completely filling out that Etsy search bar is not necessary. Front load your listings, meaning you want to put your more important keywords in the front. So again, it does help with Etsy, but it also helps with the search results on Google. So you want to keep your titles human and conversational and paragraph. You don't want to put too many keywords in your title, because it does come across as spammy to Google and will affect your Google rank. Making sure your your shop sections, keep them legible and specific. So you want to make sure that you're telling them, silver bracelets, autumn candles, Christmas wreaths. You want to be very specific in your shop sections. You want to put your best image forward. So making sure, Google tends to see overcrowded images and pictures with watermark as spammy. So you want that first photo to be very clear. Links, while having links redirect to a listing page can establish credibility. You don't want to buy links. There are some less than reputable sites that allow you to purchase links to your site in hopes of boosting your site rankings, but Google knows when traffic isn't coming from a quality site. So I get this asked all the time, that I found this person on Instagram, or they reached out to me on Instagram. They want me to pay in order to list my items on their sites in order to drive links to my items. So I'm just telling you that Google will penalize you for that, so do not do it. So we're going to talk about Etsy ads. As mentioned before, Etsy search and Google search have an opportunity for visibility from both an organic search, but also through advertising campaigns, okay? So on Etsy, advertising is called promoted listings, and on Google, it's called Google Shopping. But with the power of Etsy and your Etsy shop, you can manage both in one area. Instead of having two separate campaigns, you can have a single daily budget that performs your Etsy ads on both Etsy as well as Google. Getting started with Etsy ads is simple. You just set a daily budget and you select which listings to promote and let the campaign run. Over time, Etsy ads tool will continually optimize where and when your ads appear to bring your shop the most visits possible. So let me rephrase that. Over time, I hear a lot of people who will set their ad up for the weekend and then they turn it off because it's not working for them. You've got to put it on for a while, okay? You've got to at least give it 30 days before you make any changes to your ads. All right, so when you do your Etsy ads, it also promotes, gives a little boost of increased visibility and also will help increase sales. But there are some best practices when you're doing your ads, okay? The steps that you take to optimize your listings for Etsy and Google searches will also help with your visibility in Etsy ads. So let me repeat that a little bit slower, because when I learned this, I thought this was brilliant. This was brilliant, an aha moment for me. The steps you take to optimize your listings for Etsy and Google searches will help with your visibility in Etsy ads. So just throwing something up there on Etsy and not taking the time to put your research into the keywords and making sure you've got your tags and your titles in place, if you're just throwing stuff on Etsy and putting an ad behind it, hoping for it to get found, will not work, okay? You want to also consider seasonality. So think about holidays. So for me as a wreath maker, it's all about the holidays, right? My business is always holiday driven. It does not make sense for me to be promoting an Easter wreath at this time. I don't want to promote everything in my Etsy shop. I want to be very specific for only promoting things that are in season at this time. So you want to make sure that you check your listings and change them out as you need it for seasons. You want to also consider organic traffic. Those items that are already performing well in your Etsy shop without ads are the ones you should be putting ad revenue behind. It's almost like I tell people when they're on Facebook and they're trying to do Facebook ads, you can't do a Facebook ad. I mean, you can, but you're going to get more bang for your buck, more views for your dollar if you already have something that's doing very well organically and then put ad revenue behind it. It's going to get better results for your with your money. You want to promote unique items. This is especially relevant when you're thinking about Google, where your listings are next to very more generic items like those big box brands. So when you go to Google, I want you just to go to Google, you guys, and do this for yourself after the webinar. Go search something on that you think a buyer would search on for your item and click on shopping. Look at all of those items and see which ones are you drawn to click on, okay? Etsy shows up there. Etsy shows up there. So when you can offer something personalized that's a little different than those box brands, it definitely helps. Also, keep in mind you're going to use concise and readable keywords and titles to make sure that you're getting seen. And the longer the title, the more spammy it looks to the buyer. So if you're running ads on your listings, you want to make sure to make it readable and not so spammy. Do not use watermarks on your listing photos. Google will not surface your ads if they have watermarks or other graphics in that first photo. Keep the first photo on a white background or as neutral background as possible. You want to consider your budget. I like to experiment to see which one works for me. It takes time. You could put, you want to do a daily budget, but you have to factor that in the price of your item. You can't just say, oh, I think I'll do $5 a day, and then you don't have any way to pay for that. So when you make the sale, every time somebody buys from me, each one of those items has a budget, has a little ad budget attached to it. So I might add like $2 or $3 for every item, knowing that I'm going to run an ad on it, and that's going to help to pay for your ads. So experiment with your budget, give it some time, and also your stats will be able to guide you and help you to make a decisions and tweak what you need to tweak. So you pay attention to impressions and clicks. So if I'm running an ad on something and I go and see, wow, that's got a lot of views, what the heck's going on? I know to go take a look at the listing. Do I need to change some of the photos? Maybe I need to grab the buyer's emotions a little bit more in the item's descriptions. So you can use the stats to actually help you fine tune your ads, okay? So now it's your turn, you guys. This is an activity I wanted you guys to do. I think it will be fun. I want you to go and revamp one of your Etsy listings. It could be something new, a new listing, or it could be one that you're revamping, but go in and perfect on the titles and the tags and your images and post it on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Southern Charm Wreaths. And if you have any questions, go ahead and post those here, and I'll go back and answer them. We've only had a few questions. Let's see. So the product shots are for the shop photos, right? The product shots are for the shop photos or item photos. Okay, so in other words, Daniel, you can have up to 10 photos. One of your shop photos should be a very clear product of your product. The other thing you might want to include is you making them, if that makes sense. Let me, does that answer your question? The product shots are for the shop photos. We're talking about the items, your items. Okay, good. Any other questions that you might have? Again, I've been selling on Etsy for 10 years. I have been trying to perfect my shop. When I first started, there were, a lot of fear involved of, will this work? Is it worth my time and effort? And I'm going to just tell you that it has propelled my business. I started on Etsy. I was able to start there, grow, and scale it. I love that you can start on Etsy. You don't need to have a website. You don't need to have a business license, although, I feel like if you're going to be a business, you need to have a business license, but you don't need to. If you're just getting started like I was when I was just trying to figure out this hobby, if I liked it or not, if I can, start to sell my items, you just need one item to get started, and then progressively daily work from there. Be persistent, don't give up. And when changes happen with Etsy, you just got to be flexible. Just like with any business decision you make, there are always going to be things that come along in a business that are not exactly what you had in mind, wasn't exactly what you thought it would be, but you have to be flexible and, make sure that you just work your Etsy shop as best as you can, and I'm here for any questions that you guys have. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I want to thank Etsy for choosing me to help educate the community of makers that they have. Again, if you need more detailed help, you can just contact me on my website at southerncharmwreaths.com. I hope you guys found this useful. More detailed training, I do offer that on more specific stuff, but overview, I found a lot of information that I learned from Etsy this past month, and I felt compelled to come on here and just share it with you. A lot of good information that I'm going to start using in my own Etsy shop to tweak, and I'm excited. I'm excited for fourth quarter sales. I hope you guys are too. Let's get our items listed in Etsy, and let's be very diligent in the way we are looking up our keywords, our tags, our titles, and our descriptions, and definitely those photos. You're welcome, Teresa. You're welcome, Krista. Yes, good. Okay, you're welcome. All of you are welcome. And if you're happy to watch me on a replay, make sure to comment below that video. I'll answer questions there. And if you're watching me over on my YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to my channel there and be notified the next time I do a video. All right, you guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you. Thanks, Helen. Now I've got to figure out how to end the video. Bye, guys.